Hello, and a huge warm welcome to my guest today, Sue Atkins, who's here with me to chat all things parenting. But before we head into that, I just want to tell you a little more about my guest. Sue Atkins is an internationally recognized parenting expert, author, and broadcaster. She's the author of Amazon bestsellers, including Parenting Made Easy, host of the Navigating the Digital Jungle podcast, global spokesperson for the World Digital Detox Day, and a regular guest on ITV's This Morning and BBC Radio. Sue works with families, schools, and leading brands and organizations as a global consultant supporting confident, connected parenting in the digital age. I'm really excited to chat more with this, you, Sue. So, welcome to the podcast today. How are you?
Thank you very much for inviting me. Delighted to be here.
Fantastic. So, firstly, you're a parent yourself. So, what was your parenting into, well, your journey into parenting, I should say? What was that like?
My parenting journey, well, it was a delight. I mean, I waited quite a while before I had my children. I was 32 and 34 and done all the fun stuff that I wanted to do before I sort of settled down and, you know, not go out wildly to parties and things. And it was a joy and a pleasure, and I really enjoyed it. And I still enjoy being a parent. I'm their parent, not their friend. They're now 32 and 30. But, I get on really well with them.
Fantastic. You've had such an impactful career across media, books, and family coaching. What inspired you first to get into family and parenting education?
Well, I was a deputy head and class teacher for over 22 years, and I became then head of pastoral care in my school as well as the deputy. And I became very interested because I retrained in certain areas around PSHE, personal social health education. I used to train the teachers in my school around that. So I got very interested in, always have been actually, the holistic side of a child. Their self-esteem is what's me really. And so everything from writing books to doing webinars or talking to parents or doing videos for Disney, it's all generated really by my passion to be helpful and not judge, but also give people bite-sized information so they don't get overwhelmed.
Yeah, absolutely. And I completely support that. And that's something that I very much am passionate about as well. I think it's really important, isn't it, to be able to bridge that gap between the amazing work that's happening and getting it in front of people in an easy way. And like you say, that bite-sized snippet is a really important thing. So it's fantastic to see lots of people coming into this way of thinking and doing that. You've done lots and lots of different roles. You've spoken about quite a few of them there. How do you think your different roles have shaped your philosophy around parenting?
Well, I was very lucky and very blessed. I grew up in a very happy childhood myself with my mum and dad. And then I really loved teaching. And I think that taught me many things. Obviously, studying to be a teacher, you study psychology and child development. It's hard juggling it, but I think then that gives you a colouring of how to put all those sort of things together. And I think at the heart of all those things is connection, how you stay connected with your children, listen to them. They're watching, learning, and listening and observing you all the time. And it is all about relationships too, isn't it? And not just coming at it, talking down to your kids. It's also being their parent, but actually communicating effectively with them and nurturing them and enjoying them and celebrating their successes and being alongside them if they've had a failure or a mistake or an upset.
No, I completely agree. It's hard, isn't it? Because I think some people really struggle with that kind of boundary of being supportive and being your child's kind of friend, and creating that closeness of a relationship and also retaining that important parental role, making sure that there are boundaries in place and things like that. That's sometimes a really hard line to juggle, isn't it? Do you have any tips or anything that can help people with that?
Oh gosh, I think you have to be authentic. I think you have to be authentic. I think you have to be honest. I have to say sometimes you don't know all the answers. Why would you? I remember my father saying to me once, I think I was about 15 or something, he said, "But Sue, I've never done this before." And because I thought my dad knew everything, I was quite taken aback when he said that. But everybody's journey is different and everybody knows their children better than anybody else. So you can read advice and get tips, but you have to think if it resonates with you, makes sense to you, and feels authentic and genuine and robustly academic for you. So I think it's important that you trust your own instincts and your own intuition because you know your children better than anyone else.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's a really important point you've just made there about kind of acknowledging that you don't know everything. And I think as parents, sometimes we do fall into that trap of wanting to show our children that they can get all of their information and support and everything from us. But it's so important to also acknowledge the fact that, well, actually, I don't know everything. Let's find it out together. And that's something that I think I found a lot with the work I do with home educating communities, and that element of co-learning together. And actually, they may not have a qualification in, I don't know, science based subject, but actually let's learn this together and let's find ways to navigate the information online, find out what's trustworthy, and find your own answer out. And I personally, I think that's a really key skill that children should get from their parents. And you touched upon it there with kind of being open and honest and saying, actually, I don't know the answer to that. I think that's a really important thing, to be honest and upfront with your children, isn't it?
Yes, it is, as well as kind of trying to say, I do know some things as well, though, because they always think they know better than you, certainly when they turn into teenage years.
Yeah. Although I must say, like when it comes to things like technology and social media, when they get to those teenage years, sometimes we do learn from them, don't we?
Oh, definitely. Yes, they learn quicker than us. They're digital natives, aren't they? And we're not
Yeah,
necessarily so.
exactly. And that actually leads nicely on to my next question, because you have a podcast and you talk a lot about this kind of digital side of parenting. So tell us more about your podcast.
So, yes, my podcast, Navigating the Digital Jungle, came out of being questions around smartphones and devices and kids up in their bedrooms gaming. And then, adolescents came out with Netflix. And so about a year or so,
Yeah.
a year and a half ago, I thought, well, how can I be of service? How can I help? Because we all, well, not all of us know the dangers, but there's an awful lot about the dangers. But parents want practical tips about, well, what do we do with that then? We know that it's dangerous about WhatsApp, but how do I kind of talk to my young child or, hopefully older teen around some of these issues? So Navigating the Digital Jungle with Sue Atkins and friends is my way of addressing that. We raise a topic, we talk around it. I invite experts, because I'm not an expert in all these important areas like gaming or sextortion or cyberbullying necessarily. But we also have a family change, not a challenge, because that always sounds a bit hard work. Each week we'll say, how about you just try this? So one of them, for example, is, charge your phone downstairs at night, everybody, so that the kids can't be, on their phones or gaming or whatever until 2 in the morning. So that's it's been very popular. We really enjoyed doing it. We're planning on season 4. There's loads of stuff for people to listen to and learn from on the hub, which is navigatingthedigitalJungle.com.
Fantastic. And I think that's a really key thing, isn't it? Is identifying how to navigate this world in the ever-changing way that it is, the way that technology is changing so, so quickly. And you made me smile when you said about the charging the phone downstairs, because I remember when my daughter was younger and she kind of first started getting a phone and things like that, I used to ask her to charge her phone outside of her bedroom door, because she used to shut her bedroom door, so that I knew that it was on charge and that it was outside, so she wasn't kind of going on it through the night or when I kind of wasn't there. But as you kind of touched on earlier, we're kind of new to this, aren't we, as parents? Because we didn't navigate, I think I got my first phone in year 9, but it was like basic, no social media. I think I had Snake, the game on it, and that was kind of about it. And that was towards the end of my schooling. I didn't grow up with technology, and many parents didn't have technology come in, at all in their schooling time. So it's something that we are very much having to learn really, really quickly. So I think having resources like your podcast are super helpful. And also, I like the kind of reframing of the words and the terms to make it into a positive thing rather than, using the
Brilliant.
word in a negative way. So I think that's great. Have you noticed that there's a kind of trend of typical challenges that families are facing in terms of technology?
I suppose so. I do a power hour, which is a talk that I give to schools and organisations and whoever, and parents one-to-one as well, around those top 5 challenges, which is, smartphones is the top one that people struggle with.
Yeah.
And then, they worry about FOMO, fear of missing out. They worry about cyberbullying a great deal. And they want to sort of understand some of those challenges and put boundaries around, because we talk a lot about online safety. And one simple reframe I say is, rather than call them, parental controls, which immediately makes your teen go, how do I get around that one? I think it's quite nice to say, they are privacy settings. Let's do it together. Doing things together, connecting, exploring, being curious is much, much better than come at this with sort of fear and draconian kind of style. If you say, let's do it, or show me why you like that app, or silly things I suggest sometimes, like if a kid wants to download an app, say, well, look, you've got to present it like Dragon's Den. You've got to tell me why you think you should get it. And then we'll look at it together. And then we'll talk about what we think around it, some boundaries around it. I mean, we put boundaries around junk food, alcohol, crossing the road. So why not put some boundaries around our kids and not just hand them over this incredibly fantastic piece of tech? But also, it's quite dangerous if you just let them go off and explore it completely on their own.
No, absolutely. I think it is about changing that narrative and the way that you approach things, isn't it? Very much so with that sort of thing. Because it's really hard as parents nowadays, because we obviously now we use technology a lot. A lot of parents are using their phones for work purposes, so they're always on their phones. It's really hard, and it's getting increasingly harder to model that good technology behavior as a parent in front of our children when we're actively using our technology for work purposes. Are there any kind of things that you could suggest to make it easier for us to model that as parents in this kind of everyday changing life?
Yeah, we talked about that on the podcast, actually. This idea of modeling it, being mindful, even just talking about it like we're doing, is making you more mindful of when you pick up your phone, but also talking out loud about what you're doing. So children don't always know. If you're looking up a recipe and you're cooking and the kids see you do that, say, oh, I'm just looking up the recipe for this spaghetti bolognese, so that they know you're not just mindlessly, on Instagram or something. Or you could say, well, look, let's do the shop list and let's do it together on the phone or something. So again, they see the uses of it. And one of the tips I talk about on the podcast as well is sometimes simple tip, like when the children are on their phones, it's about saying, if they name the app that they're on out loud to you or to themselves, then they begin to notice how often they're on an app and what they're doing. So you start to notice that perhaps they're on Instagram too often, and they themselves are certainly, because the aim of this is to get them to self-regulate eventually. And it's like everything that I do in parenting, it's about giving you a bit of stabilizers on the journey of all sorts of parenting, but then you are supposed to ride off into the sunset knowing what to do for yourself. It's not about me telling people what to do. And it's the same with children and tech. I'm very pro-tech, but I'm also protect. And I don't think lots of parents, or quite a lot of parents, really know some of these dangers. And so that's why on LinkedIn I talk a lot and write a lot about these tips, so that we sort of reach out to practitioners and people working with children, educate them, but don't just frighten them. Take them somewhere where they can get some practical tips and some decent advice that they know is robust. That's my intention for it, because otherwise you're in an echo chamber. And I've written some guides and some scripts even about echo chambers on my blog, and I've got tips and scripts. My new book is all full of things to say and how to say them, because sometimes parents really don't know how to start the conversations with their children.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that kind of answers my next question, because I was going to ask about what kind of advice you'd give to parents who might feel overwhelmed to not even know where to begin to have that discussion with their children about kind of their phone use or social media or things like that. And I think what you say there about having those scripts, sometimes we just need kind of the initial words to get going, to get into it, isn't it? And it sounds like those scripts are a great kind of prompt to use in that way. Is that what they're designed for?
Oh, absolutely. Just to start the conversations. Conversations really are magical. They build, bridges between people, not walls. And parents sometimes don't know how to say it, or where to say it, or how to begin it. So that's what those scripts are about. But the important thing is that, most parents, you're not alone. That's why sort of smartphone free childhood has become so popular, because it's kind of like a group activity to try and protect kids. But also remember, it's never too late to reset. A lot of people have said to me, but oh, the horse is bolted, my kid's got a smartphone now, what shall I do? Well, there's an article on my blog all around that, because it's never too late to rein it in a bit or put some more boundaries around it. It's how you say things, your tone of voice, your body language. These things help you address some of the problems that you might have. And nobody's done it before, and it is a sort of a new way of thinking about all of these devices. And of course, kids love it and they've grown up with it, and you perhaps haven't. So, don't sort of poo-hoo it, but also don't deny it. So start looking at it together and think about, for example, I have a family tech agreement that you can sit down and download off my website. And that means you start chatting about what feels about right, how long, what sort of time should we allow you to do it? Because it's not all screen time is equal. Because you could, as I said to you earlier about, you could be looking up a recipe, but also
Yeah.
kids, they can be on screens, but it depends what they're doing. There's a big difference between scrolling and actually looking up something. So, you need to think about it. And I also think one very simple thing is to have the odd screen-free zone. When you sit down and eat together, put them in phone jail or put them in the other room, or make it, funny and humorous, though. Don't make it all naggy and negative. And then kids will, and you can't have your phone, so you have a chat. And then don't nag about holding the knife and fork properly and eating the broccoli. Ask an open-ended question, what made you laugh at school today? And then you start conversations, which I think creates connection.
No, absolutely. Do you think there's a place, because some people choose to actively not allow their children to have a phone or access to social media or things like that until they are a certain age, or what have you? Do you think there's a place for that sort of way of dealing with it, or do you think that introduction and talking about it is what's important?
Oh, it's complex, like everything in life.
Mm,
It's not black or it's not white. And school are doing, we interviewed Damien from his school that has banned, smartphones in class and throughout the school, and that seems to be very successful. But then, of course, you come out of the school gates, and then what are they going to do? So that's why you need a combination of conversations, digital literacy, and trying to make sure your kids are aware of their use of them. So they're learning to balance and eventually self-regulate. But sometimes, if the younger they are, that's not really the best place for them. We all see, mums and dads who hand the toddler the smartphone because they don't want them to make a noise or throw a tantrum. And that's damaging. I've just got a new guide that's gone into safer screens today, actually, on the website, because it's about thinking about what you're doing with babies and toddlers. Just deferring and giving them these devices is not helping their language development or their brains. It's quite passive. But the other thing that people get a bit stuck in, I think, as well, is they think all apps are educational. And certainly in the UK, the research has shown that, oh, no, they're learning their ABCs and their one, two, threes. They're not necessarily doing that when they're scrolling through or playing with it. So be mindful. That's all. I just want people to be more conscious about what they're doing with all these topics, really, with gaming and online chats and all these things, and where it can lead them down a kind of a dangerous or a difficult path. And my big thing is, don't put your head in the sand around these topics.
yeah, absolutely. And you touched upon their link with a school there. So I was wondering kind of what role do you think that schools and educators have in supporting families around this kind of digital age, if
Well,
any?
we're all learning about it together. And obviously, as a former deputy head, I have a real interest in education. Schools are in a very powerful position, really, to lead digital well-being initiatives and talk with parents, not at them. Don't come top down, we think we know better. I'm a great believer in parental engagement. In fact, I'm giving a Power Hour talk around it soon, because it's very important that we are proactive and listening to parents. And everybody's family is slightly different. And that means partnering with parents, not blaming them. They don't need blame. And I love working with schools that host my sessions and, use consistent language between home and school, I think, which is important, and screen use. And of course, schools play a role in that sometimes. I know we went through the pandemic and all the learning was done at home, on screens. But ed tech has a bit of a role to think about, because an awful lot of homework, certainly as the kids get older is done on devices. So we've got to talk with parents, and parents have got to talk with schools and teachers about what's the best way forward. And each school may well be different because they're all in different catchment areas.
Absolutely. And you've touched upon it there as well, about kind of schools talking to parents and getting involved in that. Is there anything else you'd like to see change or improve in terms of that kind of school and parent partnership?
I think less jargon from
Mm,
the school and more real conversation, and just having the mindset to partner with parents and students, because as children get older, they need to have their voice heard as well about it.
yeah.
And I think people need to have empathy and understanding. And, I think it could be quite nice if schools had more regular experts in, like through a Zoom thing. You have a parenting kind of clinic around this stuff because it's changing so quickly. AI particularly is changing so quickly. What works this week or next month may be completely redundant in 3 months' time. So I think it's also helpful to have, I talk about digital well-being ambassadors or mentors in a school, certainly for a multicultural approach and it's not just one size fits all. Parents are partners, and so we need to bring them in, not shut them out.
Mm, yeah, I agree. What would I like this term of like a digital ambassador at school. Is this kind of from the children's perspective of being digital ambassadors, or is that the school?
That can be at the school, and that's quite informal. I like informal stuff personally. I like,
Mm,
when there's a drop off, have a cup of tea, a regular kind of a place, a cafe kind of atmosphere where you have a cup of tea or a cup of coffee and a cake. And, there's somebody there chatting with parents, their peers, their kids are in the same class or, maybe two classes up or something. So that there's that, collaborative kind of feel to it. It's not sort of done to you. And it's a place where you could ask questions without feeling foolish. I think an awful lot of families and parents in particular sometimes in certain areas as well feel a bit, oh, I feel a bit foolish if I don't know that. Whereas you just think of a digital ambassador or something, it's an idea that I suggest to schools when I work with them, that it creates that, community feel like a hub that people are here. And certainly for these issues, I mean, I've gone in and do all sorts of parenting hubs in the past, but I noticed digital ones work very well because people then feel over time they can pop in with even the silliest of questions and feel they get an answer.
yeah, and I think as well, being a digital hub as well, it's a topic that a lot of parents are really struggling with and really don't have a lot of knowledge with. It's not something that, over generations we've got have our aunts, uncles, nans, granddads have fed information to us and we just making our own choices with parenting. Something like the digital age, it has transformed and it's not something we've got previous experience in. So I think that's potentially why it's also very popular to have something like that, or could be very popular, because it provides that space on a topic that actually we desperately want to know more, but we want to know in that supportive space, non-judgmental space, like you said, removing the jargon, make it really, really accessible.
Mm.
So I think that's key to that. It's really hard as parents, and this is something that I talk about a lot with Recap. It's really hard to navigate all of the different advice and information online or from lots of different experts, lots of different places and sources. And parenting is very much like that. What would you say to parents in terms of supporting them to be able to filter out parenting advice and find, not just what works for them, but actually what can be trustworthy and reliable, in your opinion?
Yeah, it takes a little while, but you get to know certain people. You've read their work, or you've listened to them, or you've watched a video, or you've read some of their blogs, or you know of them, you've heard them on the radio or TV, and they resonate with you. You think, my whole approach is helping hand, not pointy finger. And all my stuff is robustly researched as well. But that I hopefully break it down so that it doesn't sound like that, that it feels easy and doable and bite-sized. And that's the sort of a skill that I work on, really, to make sure that people feel included with that. But you have to trust your instinct all the time. It's like anything. You intuitively know if something doesn't feel right, or it doesn't resonate with you, or it doesn't fit your child's character or their age or your family ethos. You always got to be guided by what feels right.
No, I completely agree. There's a lot to be said for that, intuition, isn't there? So I think that's great advice. So what's next for Sue? What have you got coming up? What can you share with us?
Well, I'm doing some school readiness programs with Twinkle. I also have my own school readiness toolkit, which is free on my website. Just go there and download that, getting kids ready for school, because obviously I taught 35 4-year-olds back in the day. So I've got some first-hand experience about how that works. Also, I travel around the world really doing power hours, whether sometimes they're on Zoom, but sometimes I go there in person. And so I'm quite excited about all the new things I'm doing. My new book is being edited at the moment, adding in different cultures for Africa and Russia and Central America and India, all of those sorts of countries, and Brazil as well, so that, culturally, the digital world is different slightly as you travel the world. The main problems are still the same, like all parenting, whether you've got a toddler with a tantrum or a teenager with tech. Some of them are pretty basic, the same sort of principles, but sometimes the nuances and the cultural diversity of those things need a little tune. And therefore, I've written some scripts for all those different cultures.
Fantastic. And when's that expected to be out? Do you know yet?
Yes, it's being done at the moment, so I'm hoping it'll be out before September.
Oh, amazing. Brilliant. Well, you'll have to let us know and we can share that as well as with the links underneath, and I can add the links in afterwards to make sure that people can access that. So if somebody wants to work with you, somebody loves what you talk about, loves the vibe and wants to work directly with you, is that something they can do? And if so, how can they do it?
Oh, yes, I have a coaching practice for the last 20 years, one-to-one, or with your family. I don't come out to visit you. I'm not doing a super nanny. I work with the parents around some of these topics, whether it's divorce or whether it's, your friendship issues with your child, or you can't get them to sleep, or they've got toddler tantrums, or now more and more the digital kind of
Mm.
awareness that I do. So I offer power hours for parents, one-to-one, just even 1 hour sometimes can sort out an issue, which I find quite quick and easy. And also I work with organisations around power hours and come into, like John Lewis, I was working recently with and did 3 power hours for them. And then schools as well. I go in and give talks to teachers and train them, as well as working with the parents. So it's a beautiful mix. I love what I do and I find it very interesting.
Fantastic. And all that information is on your website. So if someone goes to your website, they'll be able to connect with you through that way. Is that right?
Yes, I've got the two websites. I've got thesueatkins.com, the one and only, because Sue Atkins is sitting on a yacht, but that's not me. So it's the Sue Atkins, or it is navigatingthedigitaljungle.com, where we've got a whole host of resources on there for people.
Amazing. I'll put links underneath the episode for those as well so people can find you nice and easy. So, just to close off, Recap's all about creating that supportive community and making everyone feel valued and supported. So, I always ask my guests to have one piece of advice or an empowering message that they can share with the listeners so that it can make people feel so much better and happier. So, if you had one piece of advice, what would you like to share?
I think be kind to yourself. You don't have all the answers. None of us have got all the answers figured out. Just take the next step and trust your intuition. You know what's best for your child, I think. And, go from there. And, you can never spoil a child with too much love.
Perfect ending. I love that. And I think that's a perfect way to close. I completely agree. So it's been lovely speaking to you today. Thank you for coming on and sharing all the amazing things that you're doing.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.